I want to start off with an awesome piece that Mother Jones did in regard to a publishing house that publishes books for people like Ann Coulter and Michelle Malkin and Newt Gingrich. Obviously, this is a publisher that loves to put out books that don't tell the truth. And so Regnery is the name of this publishing house. And what Mother Jones found about Regnery is super interesting because apparently the heir to this publisher is funding right-wing extremists like Richard Spencer and other people who consider themselves white supremacists. Super interesting. So William H. Regnery II is the person that we're having a conversation about, and apparently he's the nephew of Regnery Publishing founder Henry Regnery, and has for years been terrified of whites becoming a minority in the United States. To combat this, he has generously funded several white supremacist think tanks and figures such as Richard Spencer. So that's an excerpt from Raw Story, but you guys should definitely check out the full piece from Mother Jones. And they specifically talk about this one instance where Regnery gets together with Richard Spencer, and they plan on having some sort of get together, meet up in Hungary after they had elected, a right winger. And so they wanted to kind of like gather people together and start pushing for this white movement, okay? And so the authorities there thought that this was a CIA operation, that they were sending these crazy right wingers into their country to get dirt on people in their country, and then they would use that as material to extort them in some way. I mean, it was just insane, like conspiracy theory that didn't really hash out. So as a result, when Richard Spencer showed up in 2014, authorities immediately sent him back to the United States, and then he decided to try to re-enter the country with a train, and then they caught him and then sent him back to the United States again. So that's super interesting. But what you should know is that Regnery is really worried about whites becoming a minority in the country, and he wants to do something to stop it.
Well, guess what? I got news for you, Bill Regnery. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. That's inevitable. The alarming part about it's a great story. You're right, from Mother Jones, and everybody should read it. But the propagandizing of white supremacy, the legitimizing of it through funding these things, the National Policy Institute. Like again, that's I'm interested in these figures from the National Policy Institute. It's a great name. I can't believe it wasn't taken, right? Yeah. And now it's the White Citizens Council in Mississippi that Trent Lott, by the way, was either a member of or spoke in front of. Was just to give you an idea of, again, this current brand of Republicans and their leaders. So this is a dressing up of white hate. That's all this is.
Yes.
Right. There are plenty of legitimate conservative think tanks that think conservatively. This is another thing altogether, and the danger is, and the tragedy of it is that the mainstream right wing has not stood up and repudiated this and broken away from it in any way. They've embraced
lately they
it.
haven't.
Right, lately, that's right.
Well, what I wanted to bring up, and the reason why I say lately they haven't is because in the beginning they did. So the Regnerys were very much in line with establishment Republicans for a very, very long time. And then at some point, William H. Regnery II decided, I don't care about being accepted in these establishment circles, right? I like the more extreme members of the right. And that was when he started to align himself with people like Richard Spencer. And in regard to Richard Spencer, he said the following about him: I am now persuaded that with your courage, the alt-right side of history will prevail. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the embracing of that extremism is going to be at the end of, as Ben says, at the end of it all is going to be horribly disappointed. But the problem is, getting to the end of it all, there could be a lot of pretty nasty moments along the way, and these pockets of white extremism are all over the country. And I used to think they were just concentrated in the Deep South. Certainly, that's where they had a pretty significant genesis, but they do exist nationwide. And you read a story like this, there's so much great stuff being done by Mother Jones, and this is yet another great story. And it's shocking.
Yeah, I don't think that this is as widespread a problem as we're led to believe, in part because they're successfully propagandizing in a more effective way than they have. Like they know they're a infinitesimally small group, but they've got money and they start a think tank, and then inevitably we'll take them seriously.
Okay.
But I don't know, man. I don't know. And obviously there are organizations that track this that are much better suited to answer these questions than I.
And I respond a little bit to the optics which are associated with, this many people showed up to this white power rally, and they seem to have them all over the freaking country, and they always look like a pretty significant number. I mean,
it's usually a couple hundred, but they also are met with counter protesters and in the couple hundreds as well.
There's no question there's a greater counter protest than there is protest, but that is to say there's a greater counterbalance to that white power lobby.
It's just
good.
Okay, I'm white. Okay, I feel pretty good about myself. Like I don't feel threatened by being a minority. Right? Like I don't sit like in bed at night, like rocking back and forth, thinking about the numbers, like, oh my God, what percentage of the United States is white? Oh my God, what percent? Like it's just super weird to me how afraid they are of people who aren't white. And here's a statement from Regnery that just amazed me. He said, worse, a flood of immigrants were changing the look of America from a palette of prime colors to a third world monochrome. Don't say it that way, dude.
That's really what's going on here, though. This is part of the Make America Great Again world, which is that it was so much better when it was just all one color, and that color was white. I mean, I don't mean to state it too starkly, but really, that is what's going on here. The good old days. Remember the good old days before all the immigrants got here, and there are all these different languages, and this mall has all these different kinds of ethnic foods. I mean, remember the good old days with the general store, and everybody drove a Ford or a Chevy? That's what's going on here. This is an outgrowth of that. So when I hear that Make America Great Again thing, I think that appeals to these people who want to make America that way again.
We talk about it openly. And also, this is the other thing. You'll see it when people have been in power, and it's the kind of people that are in power is because they like to oppress other people. So they assume everyone's like them. So, oh my God, if we end up being the minorities, you know what they're gonna do? The same thing that we did. And they think they're gonna get oppressed or beaten down or enslaved. So,
they already think they are doing that, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's where their mindset is. They think, oh my God, if I'm not the ruling class based off of race, then suddenly they're gonna do it to me because they think everyone's just like them.
To Ben's point, I just don't necessarily think that it's a big group of people, but look how vigorous their movement is when you look at the politics of it. Right. And if you see that as a broader thing that's being reinforced at the highest levels of government in this country right now, then all of a sudden, they don't need to be huge numbers.
I wish we had somebody, I would love to talk to somebody from the Southern Poverty Law Center because they track this, and I'd be totally curious, they track the actual numbers. Yeah. But more importantly, like how much does it matter? The reason I brought up the White Citizens Council, because the Klan recognized that we can't run around with sheets over our heads. People think we're clowns, right? We're racist clowns. Let's put on a shirt and tie, and let's call it the White Citizens Council. And they'd have a better name for it now. They wouldn't call it the White Citizens Council. They'd call it the Citizens Council, right? And let's clean it up, right? And we'll still do the damage that we want to do, but we'll do it under we'll make it look official. We'll make it look clean. We'll make it look nice, and we'll make people who won't support the Klan feel more comfortable supporting us. And I'm curious what the National Policy Institute, a white nationalist think tank, and what guys like Richard Spencer, who's affable and presentable and wears a tie, and we don't see him marching down the street with a swastika tattooed to him, right? He looks presentable. What does that do to the movement? How much more what is that? Is that worth 1 million people? Is that worth 2 million people? Like the propaganda, everybody's better at propaganda right now except the Democrats. And part of the people who are better at this propaganda is this movement, and it's and propaganda is dangerous, and they know what they're doing. And having a publisher in their pocket only helps.
Watch the Young Turks commercial-free. Download it or stream it. Watch it anywhere you like at tytnetwork.com/join.